Yeah. Hair flip. Yeah, I'm a badass bitch. I don't like it. Hair flip. Yeah. Oh my god. So you guys should be happy. Oh my goodness. Hair flip. But anyways, hair flip. And hair flipping on these hoes. Hi.
Hello, welcome back to your boy SeanDavieWay. Make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't already. Shout out to y'all for joining me. I love you all so much. We will be surviving the 90s. We'll be surviving 90s sitcoms. We'll be surviving situations that happened in the 90s. And then we'll switch over into the early 2000s as well. We will survive the early 2000s. We're going to kick it off by surviving the Moesha curse. If you haven't heard of it, sit back. This video gets very in detail in what happened with the curse itself. So I'm not going to hold you any longer than we have to. Let's get right into it. She called me a bitch to my face. Brandy had Countess Vaughn removed. Vita Spears fired from Moesha. Details resurface following Netflix premiere. Fans of many black classic shows of the 90s and early 2000s that were noticeably absent from streaming platforms got their prayers answered when it was announced that many of these shows would not be available. Shows like Sister Sister, The Game, Girlfriends, One-on-One, Half and Half, The Parkers, and Moesha were all set to finally be available on streaming giant Netflix in those coming weeks. With the news of Moesha debuting on Netflix and the release of the R&B star Brandy's latest album, B7, new details are emerging from past instances concerning the show. For years, rumors had run rampant of contention plaguing the set of the hit 90s sitcom. Reports that Brandy and her co-star Countess Vaughn, who played Kim, Moesha's best friend on the show, were quite the opposite. As rumors continually swirled that the two were constantly butting heads, this adding on the already widespread rumors of a feud between Brandy and fellow R&B star Monica would follow them for years to come. In a 1998 interview with Vibe magazine, Brandy confirmed they were indeed having issues between the two, implying that Vaughn was jealous of her, and that is where the feud stemmed from. Brandy's quote, "I think she's very funny, very talented," she told the publication. "I just feel like she wants to be in the position I'm in. People tell her you're the reason why the show is successful. And she told me that before. And she called me a bitch to my face. She said I'm the reason the show is successful, in front of a lot of people. And I looked at her like, wow. I couldn't say nothing about her because I wasn't about to. She knows. She wakes up and looks at herself in the mirror and gets disgusted. I don't." End of Brandy's quote. However, Vaughn seemed to see the situation differently when she appeared on Sinbad, a late-night talk show hosted by the comedian, also in 1998, and had the following to say. Her quote, "It happens in families, but I love her. I love B. I love you, girl. That's my sister."
wrong with you, man? I know you Usher, but hey, you know.
I pick you right up. Freak like the one that's ever made you feel. Oh, no. Don't you know I wanna freak you, baby? Freak you. Yeah. But they call me USHERRAYMOND.
Uh-oh.
Now, baby, tell me what you want to do with me.
Oh, well, you got me feeling like Jodeci.
Uh-oh.
Oh, well.
Every time that you roll with me, holding me, trying to keep control of me, nice.
Well, let me get involved.
For real, when we was on the Moesha set,
Yeah.
we did it.
This is the homie.
Well, I want to say congratulations on the NAACP
Thank
Image
you.
Award.
Thank you so
Well
much.
deserved, because you're a funny lady.
Thank you.
Very talented.
Thank you.
Now, how do people, I mean, your character is funny. She's bad, she's sassy. Now, when you're out in the street, 'cause, you know, people take that as real. You know, we watch people watch soap operas and stuff, they get all involved.
Yeah, they do, and they always, hey, girl, how you doing? I love it. I love what they give. I feel as though everybody has a character like that hangs out with them. That loud, aggressive. You always have to tell them, shh, be quiet, you know?
That's me.
Everybody has that type
I'm
of
that
homegirl
person.
in their clique.
I'm that
and I
person.
think that's the reason why they can identify with it.
I don't know when they tell her shut up.
Really?
They people, Sinbad, I'm like,
Well,
I'm
me
sorry,
too.
I'm sorry. I can't help it, got a big mouth. Now, you played Brandy's best friend on the show, and the New Vibe magazine, I don't know how much this is real, 'cause you know how magazines are?
Yes,
They said,
magazines, tabloids, they always stretch things out.
and they said that you two are not getting along. And, you know, that would be a shame, because to be on a show, a hit black show like that, because when two people, and the two lead characters on the show ain't getting along, it's a long year.
Oh, it's some drama, but no. Basically, Brandy and I, we are good friends. We're like sisters. And what happens is, in a family, people, you know, get into arguments and then they get back together. It's, you know, that's the way it happens. I mean, it happens in families.
Yeah, my family,
But I
my
love
family,
her.
my family
I
shot
love
at me.
B. I love you, girl.
So that's good.
I love you, booby.
All right.
Yeah. That's my girl.
So cool. This article, forget that.
Forget that.
Watch that.
So with Brandy stating that, you know, I didn't say anything back to Countess when she said that to me, you know, and whatnot. She has to look at herself in the mirror, and I'm sure she's pretty disgusted. Lets me know that, Brandy, you were very stuck up on set, Brandy. You definitely walked around like you were the queen. And here's the thing. Countess was 10 times more entertaining than Brandy. Countess could sing. She had a beautiful voice. She was fun. She was quirky. She was definitely a standout talent. And I think that bothered Brandy, because she would hear, and even in the reviews, people would state how Kim made the show, how Countess Vaughn definitely, which if you look at the earlier seasons, especially in Moesha, Countess was in a lot of episodes because she was needed. And I think that started to bother Brandy. I think that started to get on her nerves, that everybody thinks that she's so much more talented than me when I am the pop and R&B princess, you know, and whatnot. And she doesn't even have a record deal or anything like that. So why does everybody think that she's so this and she's so that? So I do think Brandy was jealous of Countess. And at times I feel that Countess felt the same way, that she was jealous that she wasn't in the spotlight because she was all anybody was talking about. So let's keep going. I loved Brandy as Moesha, but let's just keep it real. Kim was the better character. She absolutely was. I love Moesha and how smart she was, and you know how she's this pretty girl that was misunderstood, you know, darker skinned girl, which definitely represented for black women, which was extremely needed, especially in the late 90s, early 2000s, and even still to this day, we need strong black female roles and role models, and Brandy was definitely that. Loved her, but still at the same time, Countess was the star when it came to the show Moesha. Brandy was the star on stage, and when it came to getting in front of that camera acting, Countess had it all, which makes even more sense in why the Parkers was so successful. It's not like Countess got her own spinoff, and when she did, just all of a sudden they got canceled and low ratings and things like that. No, the Parkers was extremely successful. Monique and Countess did their thing. The show was very successful, even to the point to where it became more successful than Moesha. So let's keep it real, Brandy. You were definitely jealous of Countess, and I appreciate Countess for apologizing, but it makes Brandy once again look stuck up because she should have apologized too. I do not feel that Countess should have called her out of her name, but at the same time, even other cast members stated that they went back and forth all the time. They were constantly arguing. So Brandy, you definitely played a part. So I don't understand why Brandy felt like she didn't need to apologize to Countess, and she did. So moving right along. After years of a strained relationship, it was reported to the network to seem to figure out a solution. With Countess Vaughn's character being extremely popular, they developed a spin-off show to center around her and her mother, Nikki Parker, played by comedian and Oscar-winning actress Monique. The show will go on to become a success on its own for 5 seasons. An article posted in the New York Post in 2000 said the hatchet seemed to be buried between the two as Brandy skipped the Grammy ceremony that year, even though she was nominated, and stunned Vaughn as well as the live studio audience by surprising her on the set of The Parkers. This was the first time Norwood visited the set, even though she tapes her own show at the same studio lot just yards away. However, a report had resurfaced that contradicts that things seem to have been amicable when they split. A 1999 LA Times article said the show's creator, Vita Spears, had been fired from the show due to a power struggle with Brandy and her mother, manager Sonia Norwood. The article reports that the ousting of Spears, which took place Tuesday, was not wholly unexpected to those working on the series, where tensions had been building for weeks over the show's creative direction. Brandy was also to be named as an executive producer, which Spears opposed. It is alleged that the Norwoods, as well as the network, wanted to introduce more dramatic and gritty elements on the show, while Spears wanted to stick to the family-oriented comedic roots that the show was rooted in. So with that being said, the Norwoods, Brandy's mom especially, wanted, to add Ray J, is what I'm getting, because when they're saying that Vita wanted to keep the show, funny and whatnot, they didn't. They wanted to stir things up. And by stirring things up is, if you watch Moesha, is when Frank had to tell the family that Dorian was not their cousin, it was actually their brother, because he had an affair with Brandy's mother, whom passed away, with Moesha's mother, I should say, whom passed away. So Vita didn't want to ruin Frank's image as the all-American father that everybody loved, because adding that on him made Frank look like a bad person. It made him look like, not only was he trying to tell his kids right from wrong and teach them right from wrong, but he had done a lot of wrong himself. And everyone knows how Moesha felt about her mom. So to have him throw something like that on her definitely shook things up. And the cast was against it. They didn't want Dorian to be, Frank's son. They wanted it to leave it how it was, the troublesome nephew, that came into town and now was going to live with them. But I feel that Brandy's mother, Sonia Norwood, was kind of being greedy, if you ask me, and wanted both of her kids to, blow up from the show Moesha, adding Ray J in, which is Brandy's brother. So that is when, tempers really started to flare once they wanted to change up basically the entire dynamic of the show. Vita was completely against it. And, the Norwoods were very important to the show because Moesha was the show, which is Brandy. Brandy is the show, besides her counterparts. So that is what they're stating in this situation. But let's keep going. Let me explain Sonia's greed and what I mean by Brandy's mom, Sonia Norwood, was being greedy by making Ray J the brother, or making them write him in as the brother. as Ray J being the cousin, he was about to get the boot. They were about to remove him from the show because he didn't have an intricate role. There was no reason to have him, on the show anymore. So I feel that Sonya argued with Vita so that Vita can make Ray J a long-standing character, meaning not removing him from the show. Making Ray J the brother gave him an intricate role. It gave him a reason to be there constantly all the time. If he is the brother of Miles and Moesha now he's a part of the cast permanently instead of just temporarily. So that's what I mean by Sonya's greed. She wanted Ray J to stay on the show and she was going to get her way no matter what. Very greedy, if you ask me, because right as Ray J became the brother of the show, well, the brother in the family, Moesha came to an end pretty much not too soon after. So it was better off that he leaves, and instead Ray J kind of ruined the show. Pertaining to Von's departure, they continued. The popularity of the Parkers was particularly galling to the Norwoods. The two actresses were seen fighting constantly, and Brandy finally demanded that Von be taken off the show. Because Kim was one of the comedy's more popular characters, producers decided to create a new show involving her. Years later, Countess Von would feel led to apologize for her role in the tumultuous relationship. Taken to Instagram, she penned a lengthy apology to her former co-star. At the end of the day, she says, "I had to learn and find myself. Why not be friends when we are both talented? Why call you names when you're just as an amazing person? I'm proud of you for being you and working to rise to the best you inside of you. You are an amazing being with God's given capacity." Brandy eventually accepted the apology, and the two reunited in 2018 with the rest of the cast on the daytime talk show, The Real. The cast discussed different issues, including a potential reboot of the show or finale episode to conclude the series, since the last episode of the series left fans with a cliffhanger. Brandy has recently hinted at a reboot finally happening or a sequel after the show debuted on Netflix. There was a lot left out in what Countess was actually going through when she did get her show, The Parkers. So let's get into that. The Parkers, the heartbreaking decision Countess Von made in order to keep her role on the show. In 2014, actress Countess Von revealed an unexpected revelation about her early days starring as Kim Parker on the hit UPN sitcom, The Parkers. While attending a therapy session during an episode of TV1's Hollywood Divas, Von shared what she had been through in the past while trying to make it big in Hollywood. As she recalled a difficult journey, Von opened up about how one experience as a teen almost cost her a huge opportunity. After 3 years of starring as the funny and often ditzy sidekick of the ever-so-perfect main character on Moesha, Von left the show to star on her own sitcom, The Parkers, in 1999. The series centered around Von's character Kim Parker, who attends Santa Monica College with her mom, Nikki Parker Monique. Though Kim's initially mortified when her mother starts attending the same school as her, she eventually accepts the situation. The show ran for 5 successful seasons, airing its final episode May 10, 2004, which drew in a whopping 3.6 million viewers. Countess Von fell pregnant after beginning work on The Parkers. After leaving Moesha and landing her own spin-off series, Von couldn't have been more happier that she finally was getting the opportunity to be front and center. However, after she began working on The Parkers, Von discovered she was pregnant, which caused her to worry about her future in the industry. During a 2014 episode of Hollywood Divas, Von opened up about getting pregnant at 18 and shared that she was afraid of losing her role on The Parkers if people found out about her pregnancy. Her quote, "I had an unwanted pregnancy. I had just started my TV show," she recalled. "I knew that in Black Hollywood, a girl having a baby, they'd get rid of you." With that in mind, the actor decided to abort the baby as she didn't want the pregnancy to ruin her career. She continued, "I had to make a decision to get rid of my child for my career because I knew from the jump that if I let any of them know what was going on, they would have canceled my show." Though the decision was painful, being forced to keep the procedure a secret turned out to be harder for Von. "I really needed it to release all that I had been carrying at the time." I really needed to release all that I've been carrying all this time, she told Us Weekly. I've beaten myself up for so long about it, and I just felt like, you know what, girl, you gotta tell somebody. Even though the world will know, hey, that's just me, I like to keep it real at all times. When it was being shot, I really didn't notice the cameras being there. I was really there for help. So if you didn't know, back in the late 90s and early 2000s, there was this thing going around called the Moesha curse. The Moesha curse definitely affected everybody except Brandy, which was very weird. Everyone was affected by this curse. And this curse alleged that something bad happens to these cast members, whether they died or something bad happened in their personal lives while they were on set, or, you know, their career just so happened to go away after Moesha. But Moesha definitely had this curse that went around set. You know, even Vita Spears, the show's creator, she even got removed, you know, from the show. So it was just a lot of bad things allegedly that would happen if you graced the set of Moesha. So without further ado, let's get right into what they called in the late 90s and the early 2000s, the Moesha curse.
Now, he was a former child star who had made the leap to grown-up success.
Here I am.
He loved the acting.
But his dreams came crashing down when he met a devious young woman.
She is a very street-savvy lady.
With a twisted agenda.
The Moesha curse continues as the fourth cast member from the hit show dies. Is this your first time hearing about the Moesha cast curse? If you are superstitious or a conspiracy theorist, then this is right up your alley. It's similar to that of Saturday Night Live. Yvette Wilson's death is the fifth person that had a recurring role on that show to die in just the last 10 years. The strange part isn't that they all died, but they died way before their time. None of them made it past their 51st birthday. Even for me, this appears to be just a little more than a coincidence, and I'm just as unsuperstitious as you get. Let's take a closer look at the deaths, who died, and how they occurred, and you have to come up with your own conclusion. Ohaji. Merlin Santana, his role was Ohaji on Moesha. His age of death was 26, and he died in 2002. Do you remember him from The Cosby Show? He played Stanley, the kid that went to war with Kenny, aka Bud, for Rudy's affection. Santana went on to play Ohaji on Moesha before his most famous role as Romeo on The Steve Harvey Show. His death? Shot 6 times in Los Angeles. A girl named Monique King told her boyfriend Damian Andre Gates, 21 years old at the time, that Santana had RAPED'd her. On November 9th, 2002, Gates and another man, Brandon Douglas Bynes, 25 years old at the time, found Santana and a fellow child actor, Brandon Quentin Adams, he played a little black kid in The Sandlot, in the car together. The car was shot at 6 times. Gates was responsible for firing the fatal shot that entered through the trunk. The bullet traveled through the rear of the car, through the headrest, and into Santana's head, killing him instantly. During questioning related to the incident, it was discovered that Monique was lying and the whole entire thing was a setup. Gates received 3 life sentences plus 70 years. Burns, despite none of his bullets actually hitting the car, received 23 years, and King received 8 years in a juvenile facility. She was only 15. Monique was released for the time she served in her role with Merlin's death, but since then has had 2 misdemeanor arrests in Long Beach, California. She was sentenced back in February 29th on 2012 and served 20 days and was released. She was then arrested again on March 10th, 2012 in Hollywood. She is now 26 years old and apparently still hasn't learned. Hakeem Campbell. His real name, Artemis Lamont Bentley. The role he played was Hakeem Campbell. Age of death, 35. Year of death, 2005. Bentley, another young talent, was killed in a car accident. He played Hakeem, the next-door neighbor of Moesha, who bummed a ride to school and ate their food. His death, car accident. On January 19, 2005, Bentley was driving in the early mornings on a Highway 118 in Simi Valley at a high rate of speed. His Mercedes-Benz was seen running through a stop sign, breaking through a chain fence, going down an embankment, and ejecting him from the vehicle. He was struck by 5 cars before the authorities could get to him. Initial tests showed no drugs or alcohol was in his system. He left behind 2 daughters. Bentley was born in Milwaukee on October 25th, 1973. He survived by 2 young daughters and his mother, who lived in Grenada Hills. Uncle Bernie. His name was Bernie Mac. The role he played was Uncle Bernie. His age of death was at 50. His death was from sarcoidosis. Year of death, 2008. The most famous of them all, before the Bernie Mac show, he played Uncle Bernie for 11 episodes. His illness took everyone by surprise. In 2008, in August, he was admitted to the hospital in Chicago. He was treated for a week unsuccessfully and died on August 9th from sarcoidosis, which was complicated by pneumonia. Sarcoidosis is an autoimmune disease that causes the tissue in your body to swell, and this often affects the lungs, but any organ that can be affected. The illness occurs gradually and can be asymptomatic or chronic. Only 10% of the people that develop a serious disability, or fewer than that, die from it. Andell. Her real name was Yvette Wilson. The role she played was Andell. The age of death was 48. Her death was from cervical cancer. The year of death was 2012. The most recent victim of the curse, she beat cancer and it came back. The return was very aggressive, and she was in stage 4 when she discovered that she almost needed 2 kidney transplants. Eventually, she had overcome the illness, but passing away a week later. Brandy was not the only person that tried to sabotage Countess Vaughn, and was not the only one that was jealous of her. Countess, especially back in the late 90s, early 2000s, what could have been such a huge star because she had so much talent, and you kind of just couldn't take your eyes off her. She was funny, she was pretty, she was bubbly, she was everything that you needed. So, I mean, the show The Parkers would not have been nearly as successful if Kim was not on it. I mean, she literally made the show Moesha pop. Like, was Brandy cool? Yes, but Kim was who everybody looked forward to. Kim and Niecy, we loved those 2 characters. And in the beginning of the first seasons of Moesha, Kim had a very intricate role. She was the comedy. She is what made the show funny. And Countess had a really great opportunity to be on the show The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, but as people have stated in the industry, that Will was very jealous and controlling and conniving on the set of Fresh Prince, to where Countess came and did a table read and got the episode, and Will made sure that it did not happen. Now, how do we know that? Let's get into Miss Janet Hubert, who had a lot to say about this role. So Janet's quote, she says, "I recall the lovely and incredibly talented Countess Vaughn coming to guest star. Oh my God, the day of the table read, she was pee in your pants funny. The writers were howling. I mean, we were howling. So I knew she was history. Banished into the cornfield. Many years later, after she had her own show, I had to tell her when she asked me why. Countess said to Miss Janet, 'Miss Janet, why did I get cut from the episode?' she asked. And Janice replied to her and simply said, 'My darling, you were too good,' she recollected." So because Countess was so funny and everybody loved her, it's assumed that Will was jealous that, Countess will get more, episodes and whatnot, and kind of, remove the attention from him. I do believe Janet, because once again, it's proven that Countess Vaughn was a hit for the episode, and they were interested in giving her more episodes, and Will scratched all of that. Will Smith made sure none of that happened because he did not want to compete. He already had to compete with Carlton, and other people, and he was already trying to get Carlton. If you pay attention to the later episodes of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, he tried to base him more off of him, you know, and him getting Will, you know, proposing and, you know, about to get married and, you know, all of that. He really wanted the show's focus to be on him. He really didn't want anybody else to shine. So I would agree with Miss Hubert. I think that Will definitely made it so that Countess did not get that role. Thank you, everyone, for joining your boy, SeanDavieWay. If you haven't liked and subscribed already, make sure you do that now and hit that bell so you can be notified of everything that we do over here with The Survivings. So shout out to the Moesha cast. Love the show. One of my favorite sitcoms from the early or late 90s, early 2000s. And I will see you guys here on the next one, which we will probably be surviving The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So make sure you tune in. And until the next show, I love you all. Bye.